As I mentioned before, my name is Brittany Bates. I am our Assistant Director of Instructional Support here with the Krista McCall Academy School of Arts and Sciences. And I'll be sharing with you some information on innovative mindset and cultivating an innovative mindset for our students. And I'll also be recapping the work of some very brilliant minds that came before mine and will continue long after I've shared their work with you. So let's get started. This is a quote by John Steinbeck that I feel like all teachers, parents, educators, anyone who is involved in education needs to read and really take to heart, because it's one of those quotes that gives me goosebumps. It says, "I have come to believe that a great teacher is a great artist, and that there are as few and that there are as few as there are any other great artists. Teaching might even be the greatest of the arts, since the medium is the human mind and spirit." Now, I just think that that speaks to the heart of anybody who is passionate about education, and I know that it speaks to our teachers here at CMA, but this is one of those things that really make you look at your craft, or at the small humans in your life, or the large humans in your life, that you are trying to help get through this thing called education. And sometimes it feels like we're just getting through it. And that's part of the reason for this webinar. Is we're going to talk about, should we just be getting through it, or should we really be trying to get something out of it? And with that, we're going to move on here to mindsets and learning. And I subtitled this slide "A Place to Start," because this growth mindset, fixed mindset, innovative mindset, they're not necessarily new. We've put new taglines on all of them, but they're not necessarily new ways of thinking for educators. I'm starting with, I wanted us to start with looking at Bloom's taxonomy, which was founded by Dr. Benjamin Bloom in 1956. And the reason I wanted to start there was because this was one of the earlier times. I hesitate to say first, because I do know somebody came before him with the realization that we all can learn. But Benjamin Bloom came and said, we all think, and there are levels to our learning and levels to our thinking. And that's really where we started looking at mindsets and learning, and where we go from there, and how we engage in learning at different levels of our brain. And so Bloom's taxonomy is still around and still used, and I don't mean to mitigate that, but from that, Carol Dweck's work was really born, and she really dove into this fixed versus growth mindset. And with Carol's work, what we see a lot of is how she studied human motivation and what made human beings successful. And I really adore parts of her work where she looks at how somebody with a growth mindset embraces challenges and criticism, and how they view effort, versus someone with a fixed mindset. And Carol Dweck's work is very careful to show that we can, in fact, teach growth mindset. We can look at a student or a human being who seems stuck or fixed and teach them how to grow or change their point of view. Now, that's not to say that all of us always need a growth mindset. George Couros, who I'm going to speak about more fully later on in this webinar, he starts off one of his famous webinars talking about how he has a very fixed mindset about skydiving. He's very fixed in the fact he's not going to learn that. His mind is not going to grow or wrap around that. Now, he and I don't share that, whereas I tend to have a growth mindset in that area. I tend to be very fixed in other things. So it's not, we always post them as these two competing sides, where you're either a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. And I don't ever want the pendulum to be swinging drastically from one side to the other with any mindset or thinking on learning. And so as we highlight these works in this webinar, it's just something to remember that if you have a growth mindset in one area, you might have a fixed in another, and you might be looking to change that, or your student might be looking to change that. We run into a lot of students who come to the school who have a fixed mindset, in the sense where they come to us and they go, "I'm bad at math," or "I have a student who now has to change her statement, but she came to us who said, I am horrible at language arts. She's like, I'm just bad at it. I never get good grades. I'm just not going to. Now that was a great example of a fixed mindset. And so she and I talked about fixed versus growth mindset, because it was something that needed to happen in that moment. It was an organic moment where she was needing a lesson and going, well, wait a second. You keep telling me you're bad at this, but are you really always bad at this? And she was adamant that she was. And sure enough, when we talked about how she could view it as a challenge and she could view her brain as a muscle that needed to work out in this area, before we knew it, she's acing language arts and, just soaring through her coursework. She just needed a little extra time to grow in that area. So